Hey everybody, today I want to talk about 4 Beatle books that have come out recently in about the last year and a half or so. And I don't usually talk about books on my channel. I tend to try to keep it strictly talking about vinyl. But I've had a lot of people asking me my opinion lately on certain Beatle books that have come out, especially this Beatles Get Back book and Paul McCartney's The Lyrics book. These two, a lot of people have asked me what I think about these two, so I'm going to tell you that in this video. But I'm also going to talk about these 2 other books that I picked up recently. This is a collection of books. This is a book called The Stories Behind Sgt. Pepper and the White Album. This is by Bruce Spizer, who's a really great Beatle writer. And this other book is a book by John and Yoko called The Plastic Ono Band. And this came out, I think, about maybe like 2 years ago now at this point. But I got this as a gift not too long ago, and I really like it. But I'm going to talk about all 4 of these books in this video. So first off, let's start with the Beatles Get Back book. Now, this came out right before the documentary, the Peter Jackson documentary, Get Back. This came out probably like maybe a month or 2. I don't really remember, but something like that before it came out. I got it on its release date. This happens to be the Target exclusive, and the difference between the Target exclusive and all the other ones is that this comes with 4 lobby cards, and they are in the back here. And I'm not going to take them out because they're in this little pouch. I took them out once, looked at them once, and that was enough for me. But you can see what they look like with this little insert. It shows you what the lobby cards look like. And then there's some other bit of advertising in here as well. But overall, this book, I really enjoyed it. I think I was able to read the whole thing over the course of I think 1 or 2 days, just really leisurely looking at it, looking through it. Has a bunch of great photos taken by Ethan Russell and Linda McCartney, taken during, of course, the Get Back, Let It Be sessions. And a lot of photos I'd never seen before, a lot of really just high quality photos as well, especially if you're like a Beatles gear nut, like I am, like you care about the instruments they played. This is a fantastic source to see like the instruments that they were playing. A lot of instruments that I didn't even know they were playing or that were available during these sessions. You can see them in these photos. So for that alone, this book is worth it. As far as the written part in here, the text, it's all dialogue from the Get Back, Let It Be sessions. With a couple of essays thrown in here and there. One by Peter Jackson. He writes a little write-up about how he got into the Beatles when he was young, and then a couple of other ones just describing like when they ended up leaving that first place they were at and going to the Apple building, and then how they went onto the roof. Just little write-ups about that. Overall, though, a very fascinating book. And one that I think every Beatles fan should own. It's just a beautiful book. I will say, though, that it's not a book that I will go back to all that much. There are certain Beatle books that I look at all the time, like the Beatles Anthology or any of Mark Lewiston's books, like the Beatles Recording Sessions, books like that, or Beatles Gear. I go back to those books all the time. I can look at them anytime, and I'm always fascinated by them. This is not one of those books, though, at least for me. It's kind of, you see it once and it's really great and it's worth reading and checking out, but after that it's not one you're going to go back and reference. At least I'm not. But it looks great on the shelf, and I highly recommend it for anyone who's at all interested in the Beatles, especially this time period. And I see these still available at Target. I think they're available for like $40 or something like that. So, not a bad price, and worth picking up. So I did indeed like this Beatles Get Back book. Next up, Paul McCartney's book, The Lyrics. Now this came out, I don't remember exactly when it came out. I think maybe it was like November of this last year, November, December, something like that. But I picked it up on the release day, and I was very excited for this book. There was a little bit of controversy about some of the things that Paul had said within this book, but I'm not going to talk about that, and I don't really care about all that, to be perfectly honest with you. But overall, the packaging of this is amazing, totally top-notch. You get a really nice little slipcase here that features 2 books inside. Here's the slipcase if you care about that. You get the volume 1, which is A through K. And the covers are very, very cool, front and back. And then you get L through Z. Again, great photos. And I will say, the best part, in my opinion, about these lyric books are not the lyrics, it's actually the photos. There are so many amazing photos in here, photos that I've never seen, that I know a lot of people have never seen before. Paul really went deep into his archive and pulled out a lot of great photos and great memorabilia, like the Sgt. Pepper suit, some of the instruments he used. The list goes on and on and on. Very, very fascinating for that alone. This is worth owning for all that stuff alone, the photos and the memorabilia. Excellent. Now, of course, the dialogue, Paul did a bunch of interviews talking about all the songs that he talks about in this book with another author, and they compiled all that together and put the most interesting dialogue with each song. Now, I gotta say, a lot of the dialogue within this is stuff that we'd already known. The usual stories about how he dreamed yesterday, and all that kind of stuff. But there are little tidbits in here of information that are really, really cool, and stuff that he's never talked about before, especially on certain songs like "And I Love Her" or "Martha, My Dear," stuff like that. For me, the biggest revelation in this book was how freely Paul talked about Jane Asher. It seems like before in all the interviews he would kind of talk about Jane Asher, but within these volume 1, volume 2 books, if a certain song is written around the time of Jane Asher, he openly talks about her, especially like songs like "And I Love Her." He really, really goes into depth about the relationship, which I find fascinating because I didn't think he would ever really talk that much about Jane Asher. So that's very, very cool. Unfortunately, there's a lot of information within this that Paul is either misremembering, not remembering it all that correct, or he's associating certain events with, as a motorcycle was driving by, he's associating certain events with other events, like out of the timeline is how I would describe it. Stuff that it just couldn't be possible as he's remembering it. Now, let's give Paul a break. He's like 79 years old. I guess he was probably like 77, 78 when this was being put together. And he's had a very, very full life of a lot of exciting events. So, he's not going to be able to remember everything exactly as it was. And for all of us Beatle fanatics who have read books by authors that have been able to take the time to research the timeline and all that kind of stuff and get things right, it's easy for them to pinpoint certain events in Paul's life and the Beatles' lives. And Paul isn't going to be able to remember all that stuff exactly right. So there are some errors within this book. And yeah, like when I was reading it, some of that stuff did kind of bother me of like, how come they couldn't have someone couldn't have edited that or checked that out to kind of say, oh, well, that's not right. Let's fix that. Let's make it so it works. And generally the errors within this book, it's not that Paul is flat out telling a lie, because he's not. It's stuff that he's remembering in the wrong order or something like that. Like a timeline is a little bit wrong. And like I said, it's not a big deal, but it is a little bit of an annoyance is what I would say. And Paul tends to do that a lot these days is what I've found. Like in a lot of interviews, stuff like that. He remembers things a little bit differently than they really, really were as far as like the Beatles scholars are concerned. Now, that being said, he is Paul McCartney. He is the guy that experienced all this stuff. So we have to kind of take his word for things, I think, because he was the one who experienced it, and his experience is important to the Beatles story. So, all that being said, overall, I think that this Paul McCartney, the lyrics book, is essential reading for any Beatle fan. There's so many wonderful things within this collection, and like I said, it looks great. All the dialogue in here is really, really fascinating. The photos are just beyond wonderful. So I highly recommend picking this up. But just know, if you are a Beatle nerd like me, there are going to be some things in here that you're going to find probably a little bit frustrating. That's all I'll say. But still, I recommend picking up Paul McCartney, The Lyrics. Excellent, excellent book. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about this little book here. Now, this is something I picked up at Barnes & Noble. Actually, my mom got my wife and I a Barnes & Noble gift card for Christmas birthday. We both have, our birthdays are both, mine's in December, hers is in early January, so we have birthdays around the same time period. So my mom was really sweet and got us a Barnes & Noble gift card. So I picked up this as one of the gifts I wanted to get from Barnes & Noble. And it's this kind of compilation thing is what I call it. You get 2 books within one slipcase here. And this is called The Stories Behind Sgt. Pepper and the White Album, released by Bruce Spizer. And Bruce Spizer, he's put out a lot of great Beatle books, including a book that I reference a lot called The Beatles on Parlophone, which is a detailed history of the Beatles' UK albums and all the different pressings and stuff like that. Highly recommend it. But this is more of just like a rough overview of Sgt. Pepper and the White Album from a U.S. standpoint. So talking about the albums as they were released in the United States, which I find kind of interesting. So you get the Sgt. Pepper book and you get the White Album book. Now, I will say that I think, generally speaking, these are kind of for the casual Beatles fan, is what I would say. There's nothing in here that the diehard Beatle fan doesn't already know. And there's a lot of just kind of what I would call fluff in here. There's like fan recollections of what certain fans experienced when Sgt. Pepper came out, and those are kind of interesting to read, but I don't really care all that much about that kind of stuff. The highlights of these books, in my opinion, are all the photos and all of the original like advertising, like posters and like promotional stuff that he was able to track down and put in this book. All that stuff is very, very fascinating to me. I really, really like that kind of stuff. And let me try to find you actually some of that examples of that within this book. Of course, I'm having a hard time finding something right off the bat, but once, like, here's something. Here's like I don't know what this is, maybe like an Italian or some kind of European advertisement for Sgt. Pepper. That's pretty cool to see. So it's got a bunch of just great stuff like that he was able to track down. Or like this advertisement that was in the NME where it says, remember, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is the Beatles. All that kind of stuff I think is fascinating. So if you're interested in that, these 2 books are definitely worth picking up. And this was $20, by the way, for both of these books. So a very, very good price, in my opinion. Not essential, not an essential Beatle book, in my opinion, that, you know, if you're a diehard fan, I don't think you really need this book. But if you are a casual fan and you would like to know more information about Sgt. Pepper and the White Album, then this would probably be a good thing for you to pick up. And like I said, the price point is pretty fantastic. Moving on to the last book that I'm going to talk about today. This is a book by John Yoko called The Plastic Ono Band, and this is very similar to the book. Actually, it's identical to the book that came out for the Imagine sessions that I also loved a lot. I think I talked about on my channel. This one is just as good as the Imagine book. And this is something that I really, really enjoy looking at while I'm listening to the particular album that they're talking about, the Plastic Ono Band. It's got detailed information about the recording process, about each song. It's got great text from John talking about the songs and from Yoko and all the people involved, like the engineers and the session players like Klaus Voormann and Ringo Starr. Very, 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 very good book. Detailed is what I would say. This probably has more information than you'd ever really want about this Plastic Ono Band album time period. For someone like me, that is gold, and I love it. I love having more information than I actually need. For the casual fan, it might be a little daunting, but really, overall, it is a very, very fine book. And like here's just a random page I opened. You get the original lyrics to Isolation, great John song. And you turn the page, and here's a picture of John and Yoko, and there's a bunch of dialogue here talking about the song. And it's just a fantastic, fantastic book. Got to be careful here because there are some naughty photos in here of John and Yoko, but these are okay. But yeah, it's just a really, really, really great book. I love this. They're the original EMI tape boxes that contain the original session material. I like that kind of stuff. So if you're into the detailed information behind John Yoko's Plastic Ono Band album, this is an essential book for you to own. So I highly recommend this. And I've seen this on sale at Barnes & Noble for, I think, like $10. I could be wrong, but it's a very, very good price. Unfortunately, I bought this when it came out, and I think I paid like $40 or something like that. So I should have waited, but you live and you learn. Anyway, highly recommend the Plastic Ono Band book. The stories behind Sgt. Pepper and the White Album, pretty good, but maybe I wouldn't recommend it necessarily. Like, unless you're just a casual fan, you want to get into more information about Sgt. Pepper and the White Album. Paul McCartney, the lyrics, highly recommend. Excellent, excellent book. And of course, the Beatles Get Back book, also highly recommend. So those are 4 Beatles books that I've picked up in the last year or so, and just my kind of general thoughts about all 4 of them. And if you have any more questions, please ask me in the comments below. I'll try to answer those. And if you have some opinions about 4 of these books, I'd love to know what you think about them in the comments below as well. So that's it for now, and hope you're all doing well, and more videos to come. I have some ideas kind of floating around in my head, so we'll see if I get around to actually putting them down onto not video, not tape, but I guess just digital, into the digital world, right? Anyway, that's it. So take care, and bye for now.